everybody. Welcome to the mini lesson on chapter 4, which is all about the organization of the cell. This is the only video I'm going to do for this chapter just because there's so much other good information that's already out there regarding all the organelles and their structure and function. I just want to do a little message to say, hey, I'm still with you on this chapter and point out some of the key things that I wanted you guys to be working on as you're going through this chapter. So first, is when you're reading through chapter 4, it's going to talk about some history of the cell theory. So you should be learning those 3 aspects of the cell theory. It talks a little bit about microscopy. I know you don't get to get your hands on a microscope in lab this term, but your lab guys are going to be doing a good job of trying to give you some substitute activities so you can kind of see what things look like under the microscope. And then the rest of the chapter is dealing with diving into all of the different parts and pieces of cells. So this first slide here is just kind of showing the differences between 2 major groups of cells that you will be coming into encountering throughout this term and in future terms if you were to take other biology courses. So we have these key terms called prokaryote and eukaryote, or prokaryotic or eukaryotic. You might hear those terms as well. So these words, the roots are kind of, if you're to break the word up, pro means before, and kary means root or seed or kernel. So in this case, it's in reference to the nucleus. So a prokaryote is an organism that lacks a nucleus. It's like before a nucleus. In kind of Latin and Greek roots, eu means true, and then there's the kary word again, right? So if we have a prokaryote, which is a cell pre-nucleus, a eukaryote is a cell that has a true nucleus. It contains a nucleus. Now you might be asking, well, what's a nucleus? Well, a nucleus is an organelle inside of these eukaryotic cells that contains the genetic material for that cell. In this case, it's deoxyribonucleic acid, which is DNA. You might be familiar with that term. So in eukaryotic cells, all of their organisms' DNA is housed within this structure called a nucleus. Now, in a prokaryotic cell, you can see they still have DNA, but it is not surrounded by a special structure. It's just kind of floating freely there in the cytoplasm. And so that's one of the major differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. That's in their name. Prokaryote, no membrane-bound nucleus. Eukaryote, membrane-bound nucleus. That's the major difference between these 2 groups of cells. Some other differences, and you just can kind of see here looking at the pictures, prokaryotic cells aren't quite as complex. They don't have membrane-bound organelles. They have very few structures within them, and they're really, really small. So this picture doesn't really show the size scale, but you can kind of see this little box right here. That space is about 1/2 micron. A micron is a millionth of a meter. If I were to draw this bacterial cell next to this animal cell, it would probably be like that big. So prokaryotic cells are way smaller than eukaryotic cells. All right, so that is a major difference. Their size, the nucleus characteristic, lacking of a nucleus and having a nucleus. Membrane-bound organelles, you're going to be finding those in eukaryotic cells, and you're not going to have those in prokaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are always single-celled. They don't ever form multicellular organisms, where eukaryotic cells can be either single-celled, or what we call unicellular, or they can be part of a large multicellular organism. So you'll be seeing lots of examples of those in the pictures and the videos that you're going to be seeing in your cells lab, the lab 6, I believe you'll be working on this week. And our cells are made up of a group of eukaryotic cells called animal cells, which is pictured here on the bottom. Plants, trees, bushes, those types of things are made up of multicellular, they're multicellular organisms made up of plant cells, which is there on the top picture. All right, so as you are going through, you have the introductory information, and then kind of once you get started with the nucleus, let's see, where is that starting on page 84, section 4.4, right there. The whole rest of the chapter is going into small sections covering each one of these major organelles. So you'll be looking about the nucleus, ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi body, the mitochondria, the chloroplasts, the centrioles, all this big list of things. So a really good resource is, I don't know if you can see that, this is the table on page 90 and 91. It does a really good job of just kind of listing all of the organelles, showing a little picture of them, giving a description and a function. So your big goal, you have the study guide here for the chapter 4 material, but really your takeaway goal is you should be comfortable naming and describing each organelle that's listed in that table, that's kind of listed on these pictures here. So for example, you should be, by the end of this chapter, be able to describe that a mitochondria is a membrane-bound organelle. It's double membraned. It's got a little squiggly membrane on the inside, and it's found in both plant and animal cells, which are in fungal cells, and it's a eukaryotic cell organelle. And its major job is to generate energy for the cell. Sometimes you might hear it called the powerhouse of the cell. So that would be what I'm expecting your description of these organelles to be. So use that table, table 4.1 in chapter 4, draw a picture. So a really good way to test yourself, whether you know this or not, is to just draw a picture of a cell. It might even look something, very basic, like, okay, so I'm going to draw a cell. There's my plasma membrane, right? I'm going to draw a eukaryotic cell. So there's my nucleus. Inside the nucleus is the nucleolus. Connected to the nucleus is the endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes on it. I know these are really big ribosomes. Having a hard time with my touch screen here. And then we have our Golgi body. So the Golgi body are these little flattened sacs of membranes with some vesicles. We might see a mitochondria over here. We might see some lysozymes or peroxisomes, lysosomes. We might see some centrioles over here. So it's not going to look exactly as artistically perfect as the textbook, obviously, but as you can draw something like this and start labeling it, then that'll let you know that you kind of know what things are, kind of where they're located, and be thinking about what they do as you go through that process of kind of drawing your cell. The case study this week is kind of hopefully a fun one for you. It's not quite the case study like with a story and questions like you've done in the first 2 weeks, but I want you to write a story. So if you have some creativity in you can use that. I just want you to compare a cell to either a city or a business/factory. So you might think, okay, so if I'm going to use a city, the nucleus might be City Hall, where all of the charter is for the city, or the instructions for how the city runs. The mitochondria might be the power plant. The Golgi might be the shipping and receiving, or the post office. Your lysosomes are going to be the garbage men, things like that. So be creative, and in your story, make sure you're describing what the organelle/analog is, whether it's in the city or in a factory, and what the function is. So, Golgi bodies are responsible for shipping, receiving things, processing it, and shipping it out to different parts of the cell. This is why I chose the shipping and receiving department, or the post office, or the FedEx, or whatever, because that's also what that analogous thing does. So if you have any questions over the case study assignment, the living city, writing your story, just send me an email or course message, or drop in on one of the Zoom office hours. And that's it. So I'm not going to teach about the parts of the cell, just because a lot of that is really well done in the textbook, and I posted a whole bunch of other lectures. There's Crash Course on an animal cell and a plant cell. Wendy Riggs has all of her videos. Bozeman Science has one, and I put a couple other little fun ones up there. So send me questions, send me emails. Hope you enjoy learning the cell as our foundation as we progress into other parts of the other chapters in this course, because we'll be zooming in on what does the mitochondria do, what does the plasma membrane do, what's going on with the chromosomes inside the nucleus. So you kind of have to have that foundation now, so then we can apply to what's going on in future chapters. All right, so have a good afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you next time. Bye.